Why, hello there. I'm Sin. We are in the Book Nook, and today we're going to talk about a book that's about memory loss and also time travel. And I haven't read books about time travel in a while, but recently, this is the second one I've read in maybe 2 weeks' time, I want to say, because I just read prior Philip Focassi's book, The Third Rule of Time Travel. And so today we're going to talk about Nicholas Binge's book, Dissolution. This author, I had read his other book, Ascension. I read it because Stephen King said it was really good, and it was really good. And I'm getting a theme here that Nicholas Binge writes a lot about very existential, the questions of life type books, like what is existence? Why do we exist? What if time travel were possible? Like all of that. So at least for these two books, it's been very existential, and it's really fantastic. So this book follows the story of this woman, Maggie, her husband, Stanley, and there's this guy, Hassan, who's like this shady character. So you come into the story, and Maggie is with this guy, Hassan. She's like, is Stanley okay? What's going on? Where is Leah? Leah's her and Stanley's daughter. And Hassan's were like, we're trying to find that out. Stanley did something. He's disappeared. We're not sure. I need you to go back over your memories of what happened. We're going to give you this drug that's going to help bring back the memories of this, and then we'll start talking. And like, when you read the first chapter, the thing is like, dissolution in 11 hours, blah, 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 so many minutes. And you're like, okay, what is dissolution? What does that mean? You come to know what it means when you get further into the book. So Stanley, he, at this point in time, like, they're in their 80s. They had had 50 years together that were wonderful, and then he started to lose his memory, and she had put him in the Sunrise homes. And so one day, Hassan comes to her and tells her this crazy story about how Sunrise is actually this corporation that's existed for a long time that was doing these weird like experiments on memory and such, and that Stanley doesn't have Alzheimer's. It's just that Sunrise has been erasing swaths of his memory, and Maggie is just really desperate to believe this. The possibility Hassan offers her is that they can try to get her husband back and his memories back, because every once in a while he'll have like lucidity when she visits him at Sunrise, but not that much, and it's very devastating to her. And Stanley was pretty much a genius. When he was growing up and went to college, he and these two other guys that he was a student with, they had this almost like club with Professor, who was Professor Waldman, and he seemed to pick the really, really smart kids that were genius level, and they would play chess, and then eventually they wouldn't even use chessboards, and they would play 3 simultaneous games at once, and like building their memories and trying to get to perfect memory. And so Stanley had almost a perfect memory. So Maggie can almost believe that, yeah, maybe something is up. And so she's like, Hassan, what do you want from me? And he's like, I want you to break out Stanley from Sunrise. And she's like, I mean, I put him in there and I pay for him to be there. I should just be able to break him out. She's like, and he's like, they're not going to let him go that easily. She's like, all right. And he kind of like tells her what to do. And so the day comes, they go there, and he's in the car, and he's like, I'm going to apologize in advance because I have to make a diversion, and I'm going to apologize for that happening. It is unfortunate. And she's like, what? Guy comes up, and she's like, hey, I want to just take my husband out for a walk around the yard and whatnot. And the guy who she talks to seems a little like, oh, hems and haws, like, oh, we can't really do that. And she's like, I pay all kinds of money for this, that, and the other, and you better let me out. Like, I only want like 10 minutes, da da da. And so she starts to take him out. And then one of the head people comes, but then all of a sudden there's screams and stuff happening in the home, and she just starts walking across the street with Stanley in his wheelchair towards the car where Hassan is, and something's going on up there. And they get away. Immediately this like chaotic stuff is starting to happen, and you're like, okay, what is really going on here? Do we trust Hassan? Hassan seems really shady. And so they go to this place called the Lazarus Institute. And the Lazarus Institute, seems like there's all these different experiments and weird technology and all kinds of stuff going on. And apparently, too, Stanley had worked there at a point in time. Okay, so Hassan wants to help her recover Stanley's memories, but he also tells her that there's something that is in Stanley's head that has been taken from him that could help change the world, apparently. And then he goes into this whole thing about like climate change and this, that, and the other, and about famine and all this different stuff, you know, sounding like he wants to do good and this, that, and the other. But still, he's weird. He seems almost inhuman. It seems like maybe he's been augmented in certain ways. Like, stuff is super weird. It's sci-fi. So when she starts, what Hassan wants her to do, because they've had a bond, they've been together for years and years and years, he needs her to try and break into Stanley's head to try and get to these memories that they share together, to see like what had happened and what this thing is that could possibly change the world and all that. So they start doing these memory dives, and what it turns out to be is it's actually time travel. But Hassan doesn't tell her this at first. She's in the memory, but like people see her, and she's like, wait, you can see me? And so you didn't really travel physically for time travel. It was like a mental thing and using memories as like anchors, but you had to have almost like a perfect memory. That was in the beginning till they perfected this like chair called the memory spade for diving into the memories. Okay, so then you get also the whole history of Stanley growing up. Like, he came from a broken family. His father was abusive. And so really young, he applied for a college. He went to college and he ends up at this school and he's kind of a misfit. But then this Professor Waldman takes an interest in him because one day he's standing outside the classroom of this guy and he's just kind of staring, and Waldman's doing some mathematical equation that no one in the room seems to know the answer to. And then he, standing outside the door, just kind of like blurts out what it was. And then Waldman's like, and why do we do? And then he's like, wait, this isn't someone saying this from the classroom. He's like, who is that out there? And he's like, young man, come after class at this time. Don't be late. Da 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 da. And so he comes and he shows up, and there's these two other students there. And it's this guy, Jock, and this other guy, Raphael. These are like the genius kids, and they would sit there and they would do chess games and word games, and they were doing basically like memory athletics. And at some point, like, Professor Waldman really takes a shine to Stanley, and Stanley kind of becomes his favorite. And, well, Jacques seems to be a little jealous of this. And at some point, Professor Waldman invites him into something he's working on. And he's like, you can't tell Raph or Jacques. This is between us. It could be something really big. And so they start working on this whole memory spade thing with what they're... I don't know if the professor knew he was working on time travel. I think he might have, but it also connected to memory and visiting memories. And he was never fully 100%, I think, honest with Stanley. Okay, so then something happens, and then he decides to scrap the whole project. But then Stanley, later on, he ends up telling his friends about what they were working on, and they start to recreate it and get back into this, and it turns out it's a thing for time travel. So also, though, what is the secrets that are locked in Stanley's head? This book is really freaking good. I really enjoyed it. I flew through the pages. Like, it's a great sci-fi. I loved Nicholas Binge's other book, Ascension. If you like sci-fi, if you like time travel stuff, if you like people with ulterior motives, pulling weird strings, it's such a weird book. It's so good, though. I freaking loved it. I love the writing. I love the story. The characters, they were great. It's super deranged. It's super weird. Like, if you like weird sci-fi time travel, I would highly recommend it. And if you've read Nicholas Binge, I would think you'd probably like this book because it's got all those existential thoughts and questions that make you ponder reality and all that good stuff. So, also, if you enjoyed hanging out today, hit that subscribe button, come back see me again, and we'll talk about more bookish things and weird stuff.